Thank you, Mercedes. And welcome to Community Connection Hour, hosted by the Learning Center coordinators as we celebrate Family Literacy, National Financial Literacy Month. Thank you for joining us. Today's topic will be presented by Excite Credit Union and Primerica. We have joining us our guest speakers, John Hogan, Vice President of Community Relations, and Dora Baya, Community Relations Manager. And with Primerica, Clarita Lopez and John Ong, our financial guides. So please, let's give them a warm welcome, a hand of applause. And today's session is going to be so rich in information that we will be going over 2 o'clock. So we hope you can stay and join us. But if you can't, this will definitely be videotaped and you can find that. Mercedes, do you mind letting us know where we can find that?
Yeah, you can find it on the sjpl.org website or the San Jose Public Library website under our YouTube page. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll find a YouTube link and you can click there and find all of our wonderful recorded programs. Just another thing I wanted to mention is if you need anything interpreted into Spanish or Vietnamese, please go ahead and give us a shout out or type your questions or comments in the box and we'll be sure to take care of those.
Awesome, thank you. That's a very important point. Thank you, Mercedes. Okay, let's hear from Excite Credit Union. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us, Victoria. I'm gonna screen share. Like she mentioned, my name is Dora, or Dora, you can pronounce it either way. And I'm here with John Hogan. There are 2 Johns. So to be clear, the John that's here with me from Excite Credit Union is John Hogan. And we'll be presenting on some introductory topics. So we'll be covering a couple of different topics around personal finances, but we welcome you to ask any questions because we want to make sure that we're covering what you want to hear from, what you want to hear about. So please feel free to put any questions in the chat. John?
Yeah, thank you, Dora. Happy to be here and thank you for joining. I certainly want to if folks are willing or we'd love if there's something that you were hoping to learn about today or that you want to take away from this session, please you take yourself off mute and let us know or put it in the chat. But we certainly want to make sure that, we spend the right amount of time on the topics that are most interesting to you.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to share anything now? Okay, go ahead, Dora.
Right. And know that the topics we are covering, even if they don't apply to you individually, that we hope you take away this information for maybe family members for whom they do apply, this info does apply, or neighbors or anyone in the community where you see any of this type of information or need for it that you can then share. So first off, we'll start with the difference between credit unions and banks. I'm sure have seen banks like Chase, Wells Fargo that have branches all over the area. At a credit union, we are a not-for-profit organization, not in the same sense as you would see the Library Foundation or Sunday Friends or food banks, but we're a different category of a not-for-profit. That means that after operating costs like paying staff and the electricity, our earnings are returned to members, and we call them members because our members are partial owners of the credit union, and we return those earnings back in the way of lower loan rates, in the way of slightly higher earnings on deposits that you have in your savings account, let's say, and on having low or no fees. In our case at Excite Credit Union, we don't have fees for our general checking and savings accounts. So that's how we give back. We also donate to local nonprofits, and we do financial literacy just like this. We want to be involved in our community. And as a CDFI, as you can see, we're a community development financial institution. And this is how all credit unions work in general. Great question, Mercedes. Credit unions are historically more oriented to their local communities, and specific to Excite is the CDFI certification. So not all credit unions have that certification, which means that we specifically serve low to moderate income households. Anything you want to add on that, John?
No, well, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great question, Mercedes. And yeah, specifically all credit unions are not-for-profit cooperatives. So we're actually co-ops and owned by our members. And really what that means at the end of the day is, we're not for-profit businesses. So when we do well as a credit union, all the members benefit. The money doesn't go out to owners or shareholders of the organization.
Yeah. Okay, and one thing I like to always share, because most people don't know about this, I know I didn't even before joining XICU, is that there's a whole network that allows you to have access to more credit unions, as opposed to just choosing where you bank based on proximity, which of course for convenience is a great thing to consider. But in order to help make credit unions more accessible and a little bit more competitive with big banks, they partner together. And you can go online, and as you see here, the screenshot, that's what it looks like. Even if you go to excitecu.org and you look at locations, you'll see we have 2 branches in San Jose and Blossom Hill and Kirtner, but we also have ATMs in thousands of 7-Elevens, and you can pop into Patelco, into Mary West Credit Union and other credit unions. You can see all the locations around the Bay Area on that map in order to do your deposits and anything else you need as if that were your credit union too. These are the counties that we serve: Alameda, Monterey, all the way through, of course, Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz. And like I mentioned, we specifically aim to serve low to moderate income households and people who historically have been underserved by financial institutions. For us at Excite Credit Union, that specifically includes immigrants, refugees, and people who use an ITIN, for example, instead of a social security number. So an ITIN stands for an individual taxpayer identification number, and is often associated with, even though citizens can have it, it's often associated with people who do not have a social and use an ITIN in order to work and to file their taxes. So we do offer accounts through our partners like San Jose Library and the Foundation. We can offer accounts for those who don't have either an ITIN or a social. And we do offer other services at the same rates and with the same requirements, like lending, like credit, and accounts for people who use an ITIN. We also specifically aim to support foster youth. And we have accounts, I think I touched on this on a different slide, but I'll just say now, we have accounts that don't require a custodial, it's not a custodial account. And what that means, or joint account, what that means is that a youth doesn't need to have an adult on the account with them. So that for foster youth, for example, who don't have a reliable adult to open a bank account with them, they can open an account on their own at Excite.
That's awesome. I really like how you said that you're focused on immigrants, refugees, low to moderate income households. So do you guys offer home loans and help these groups get into homes?
Yes, we do. That's
awesome.
included.
Awesome.
Thank you for clarifying. Car loans. So essentially the same types of services that you would offer to someone with a social security number, we also offer to those who use an ITIN, in other words. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think as Dora was demonstrating, I mean, the credit union is really about inclusivity and access and fairness. I think that's the nature of a cooperative. And so a lot of times people feel like they're excluded from the mainstream financial system, so they might go to alternative financial providers, right? Like a Rent-A-Center or a check casher. And part of our role is we want to be accessible. So if people don't feel like they have to go to those places, which will usually have higher fees, higher interest rates, and other features that are going to make it more expensive to use them as a financial service. So that's a big part of why we do this, have education and about the credit union.
And I want to ask John, in case you weren't going to ask this question, if people could go ahead and you can take a wild guess. If you happen to know, what is the interest rate on a predatory loan? You can put it in the chat or come off mute. You want to guess
What type
of interest
of
rates
loan? Oh,
on
sorry,
a predatory loan,
a predatory.
on what we call predatory loan. And
Okay.
I'll explain what that is in just a moment. John will explain.
Okay.
But what is the interest rate on a predatory loan? You can take
Or
a guess.
a payday loan also there.
I would say like close to 20%.
Keep going.
30.
Yeah.
Most people take a guess that's related to credit cards. So on the high end for a credit card, you might be looking at 20 to 30% before you improve your credit score. But for payday lenders, we're talking 200, 300 to 500%.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Oh my gosh.
And this is why we share information, even if, like I said,
Oh
it
my
doesn't necessarily apply to
gosh.
you per se. It's important for all of us to be aware that this is happening in our community.
So that would mean if someone borrowed $100 from a payday, they're gonna pay 400?
Yeah, if they keep like turning it over every month, because the thing is, those loans are so short term and they have a fee. And so if you keep turning it over and over, that's what will happen. That's an annualized rate.
Wow.
Yeah, and I saw that John pointed that out also. And John and Clarita, if there's a time that you want to jump in and say something, certainly feel free. And I appreciate that. Yeah, here's some examples. I think one of these flyers, the one on the left, I think mentions, that the activities there are, while they're licensed by the state of California, that the deposits are not insured and transactions are not insured. But there's something really important that I want to say about these alternative services. Sometimes when I describe this, I feel like people might be hearing me say, if you use these alternative services, maybe you're not smart. I don't mean to say that at all, because these alternative services, what do? Well, they have a lot of locations.
Mm-hmm.
They speak the language of the customers that come in. They make the customers feel very, very welcome. They know their names, and they often give incredibly fast service. So there's a reason that people use these services. We think with more information, you might find out, like the first 5 minutes that you walk into an Excite Credit Union branch, you're probably not getting that first check cashed instantly, like they might at a payday lender, because we take a little bit longer to open the account, and there may be a hold on one of your checks the first time. But if you take the time to build that relationship, then that allows you to benefit from, certainly free check cashing and very low interest rates. So I hope that point's clear. It's our job to educate folks and make them feel comfortable, that we also have team members who can speak and communicate in multiple languages, and that we can be just as friendly. But I do think that is an attractive feature of the alternative folks. Thanks, Dora. I think another feature, thing that we want to always educate people on are the many scams and frauds that are prevalent out there, often targeting, again, people who are new to the country, new to our financial system, and come in through email. Oftentimes they're coming with incentives, like you just won something, click here. But ultimately, they're often trying to get your name and your social, or your ITIN, or maybe your date of birth. All these things that can allow them to impersonate you, and perhaps even open a credit file using somebody's name, which then can be very problematic on trying to restore that at a later date. So we've got some tips on here about what to avoid. and, you know, what never to share with people who are calling you on the phone or sending you a text, such as your, you know, your social, or even, like I said, even your birthday or somebody, you know, your mother's maiden name, things like this.
And I'll add to not be afraid to hang up. If you're like my mom, you're like, bueno, hello, hello, 5 times. And I'm like, mother, just hang up. It's fine. And you don't want to be rude. But I've had people tell me they've had, as soon as you start the conversation, within 1 minute, they're asking for information that they should not be asking for. Like just last night, a youth was telling me about an experience. So don't hesitate to hang up, and do not click, even if you're being offered $100 from Costco, what have you. Be very wary.
Yeah, here's some examples of some good, you know, I guess, believable spoofing emails, like a PayPal security update. You know, I mean, I mean, that's going to get my attention. I want to make sure my PayPal account is secure. But you know what? PayPal doesn't generally randomly email you with these things. Yeah, Julie, that's one, right? Somebody tells you, I get those too. Somebody tells me that they got my order for $2,000 on something, and you know, I didn't order that, so I want to call them or respond and say, hey, I didn't order that. But that's just a way for them to then ask for more information from me while they're trying to help me, that will allow them to take advantage of me in the future.
And one way to respond to these is to not respond directly. So if I receive a PayPal alert, I can, as opposed to clicking on the link, go into my own PayPal account. And then I'll notice that I don't have a notification like that. So log in on your app, or log in on your phone or your computer to see if you really have a message there. And then be careful with the emails to look at any errors and any, as you see the red box, any weird email messages or email addresses like that will give you a hint that it's not directly from them. So again, go directly to your account and or contact someone from a separate number. Don't use the number or email they have there, but contact someone separately who you know actually works there and is a valid phone number or email. Let me get to the next slide. Oops. Okay, so as John was mentioning, with the photo that you saw, funds and alternative services are not insured. And that's why we want to encourage people to be banked, to use a bank or a credit union so that your funds can be insured up to $250,000 per account. If you're like me, you don't have that much or anywhere near that. So basically all your funds for your whole life in all the accounts, and these are separate accounts. So you could have 250,000 in your savings and in your checking that are insured. So you'll often see FDIC insured. That's what you'll see mostly for banks, and for the credit union world, you'll see NCUA. And it's basically the same thing. They're both federally insured. So you have protection against things like fraud, all the scams that we were talking about. If someone steals your debit or credit card information, your financial institution will very likely give that back to you. So it's important to be with an institution where you have that type of protection. And then you have things like the convenience of direct deposit, meaning that your employer can electronically transfer your paycheck to your bank account or credit union account, so that there's no risk in losing a check, or even it gains you the convenience of not having to go in person into your financial institution. And the long term, and I point this out because often people, especially if they do not have a social security number, are concerned with being visible to credit unions and visible to banks. And we actually want to encourage that, because that's what's going to help us build generational wealth over time, because it's going to build access to credit, access to loans, when your financial habits, and especially if you're financially responsible, that gets seen by the banks or credit unions and by lenders. So that's why it's important also to avoid alternative services and be utilizing a bank or credit union. Okay, and speaking of accounts, so we just wanted to share general information about the types of accounts. Most fundamentally, you'll have a checking account, which is where your debit card debits from, meaning gets cash taken out from. So it's almost like having cash, but with a debit card, you immediately access funds in your checking account. When you use credit, then you're not accessing those funds. And that's why we want to be careful, because you might think, oh, I still have all my money in my checking account. Great. So that's where we need to be careful. That a debit account allows you to use the money in your checking account as if it were cash. And these are the types of questions you want to be asking when considering where to open an account. How much is the opening deposit? What's a minimum balance required? Are there special accounts for youth at Excite Credit Union? For example, we do have special accounts, like I mentioned before, and we have children's savings accounts that are specific to our partners, our partner schools and nonprofits, to serve those most in need. What are the monthly maintenance fees? Do you remember what we said it was at Excite Credit Union? You can put that in the chat. What's a monthly maintenance fee for a checking account at Excite Credit Union? It's kind of a trick question. Put the amount.
Is it 0?
Okay, that's correct. Thank you.
I had a
and-
question. Oh,
Yes,
sorry,
go ahead.
Dora. Can you give us an example of generational wealth? What does that look like?
Sure. What we mean by that is parents modeling behavior and a certain relationship with their financial institution that their kids will then be able to adapt. So, and that doesn't even mean that a person, let's say myself, for example, I am the child of immigrants from Mexico. So I'm first generation here. And let's say I don't need to have a ton of money per se, but at least for my kids or nieces and nephews, I want to establish habits around saving, right? I don't have any goals to be a bazillionaire. I just want to be financially stable. So per your lifestyle that you want to choose for yourself, per your savings goals, what you want to achieve, that could be an education, that could be a nice house, that could be a car, even renting, right? Even being able to live in this area that's so expensive and to be stable. That means providing the habits and that stability to the next generation, to your kids or nieces and nephews or what have you. So that's what I mean by that. And with our children's savings accounts and the financial literacy that we do at Excite Credit Union, we aim to change that trajectory so that through the years, families can grow in their knowledge and have more access to these things that will help them not be spending on average, what turns out to be about 5% of their income on alternative services, for example. So over a lifetime, someone could spend up to $40,000 on fees and other expenses if they're underbanked or not banked. So that's what we mean by that, is changing the trajectory over the lifetime. Anything you want to add, John?
Yeah, you know, I agree with Dora, and I could also, you know, I can also be a little more edgy with that description, Victoria. I mean, I think that what it means to a lot of people is, what do your kids inherit? And for many families, that has been property and real estate, right? So that's kind of how kids inherit that from their parents or grandparents, and that's what gets them started. But, you know, what we learn all around the country is, well, in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and 60s, the system was set up so that people of color often couldn't buy real estate. It was a system of redlining, and you couldn't get government-backed loans. So what ended up happening was white people were owning real estate and creating that generational wealth that they passed down to their kids. And now 3-4 generations later, we know that the average net worth at birth, you know, of a white person versus a person of color is dramatically different, right? So this long-term history is incredibly unfair. So, you know, this is kind of my activist side coming out a little bit, but this is one of the reasons that Excite invests so heavily in children's savings programs and things to help at a very young age, and we make them accessible to all people to help to bridge that gap. Yeah, I'm gonna stay on my soapbox. There's something called baby bonds that are being floated right now. If any of you know of Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, look him up. But he's got an idea where he wants the federal government to put $10,000 into the account of every newborn child, every low-income newborn child. And allow that account to then build till they're 18, and then basically give them the money. That 10,000 would grow to over 40 or 60,000 by that time. And that's his idea on how to help low-income families catch up on generational wealth. So ends the political commentary for the moment.
Thank you for adding that, John. And I see the
I
question.
love it. Thank you,
I
John.
see the question in the chat. I think we'll get to it in just a moment. We'll finish this section, and then John, I'll have you maybe jump to that question that we have in the chat.
Okay.
So here's a general standard. I think we pretty much covered this here. Generally, you're 18 years old or so to have an account. But as a youth, you can have a savings account, and you can have an account that you can spend on if you're trying to help your children learn how to spend responsibly. You can share a white lie that it's a gas card, for example. I've had people ask, hey, were gas cards a real thing, or is that just my parents doing a really good job at tricking me? And all I ever used a credit card for was gas. And I said, just keep it up. Just tell your kids it's a gas card. But again, developing those habits so that they know how to access and manage their money. And then we have savings accounts. My slides never want to advance. Okay, there we go. Documents that you'll need. So generally speaking, you'll need government issued photo identification in order to open an account. Not always the case for kids. For kids or for youth, children and youth, we would use social security card or birth certificate, because often kids don't have a photo ID, but for adults that would be required. And then you have your savings account. So this somewhat gets to the question that we had in the chat. I very often encourage community members to start saving, even if it's a little bit. Saving, I liken it to exercising, where obviously if I could work out for 8 hours today and have a six-pack tomorrow, I would, right? We probably all would, but that's not how it works. Unfortunately, you have to have this little thing called discipline, which I can say that because I don't have it and I don't have motivation. Well, I have a little bit of motivation to work out. But ideally you do little by little, and that gets you to your health goals, whatever they may be down the line, right? Even if it takes years. So the hard part is having that discipline to be consistent. But I think it's similar to saving in that we don't have to necessarily have a huge income, but we can be wary of how much we're spending, whether that's a coffee every day or once a week, that adds up to tens of thousands of dollars over a lifetime, in order to be conscientious to set aside. So even if that's 50 cents a day, $5 a month, whatever it is, start to set aside, because generally speaking, you'll want a deposit or a down payment for a house if you were to buy a house. So that's where we can start off, is on the saving. And you can use the savings account, either a traditional savings account, or there are other ones, as you see on the right-hand side here. Unfortunately, interest rates that you earn for money that you put away in a bank or credit union are historically low right now. You'd be fortunate to see a 1% interest rate. But these are just the names of some types of accounts that you might see. So high yield or money market account, a certificate of deposit or CD, or what we call the same thing in the credit union world is called a share certificate. So those are ones that once you're more ready to set a bigger amount aside, that you can do so. At Excite Credit Union, for example, the deposit would be $500 for the CD account, the share certificate, and you can leave it in there for 6 months, a year, even agree to leave it in there for 5 years, and it'll grow a little bit with that interest. So those are ways to grow money, but still have it more readily available than if you were to invest it elsewhere. Okay, and some of the questions you want to ask here, similar to with a checking account, is there a minimum balance? Are there fees for taking it out early? How can I access my funds? When, etc. Before we jump here, John, do you want to speak more to that question or add anything else?
Yeah, I noticed that, I think it was Roberto asked a question about preparing or planning to buy a first home. Again, yeah, Excite, like most banks and credit unions, we do have a mortgage, home loan department, and you know, any of our people are more than happy to do one-on-one coaching to help people take the steps to buy a first home. Sometimes we do, organize first-time buyer seminars or webinars, in person or online now. And we also have, tremendous online resources on our website that can get, pretty specific into buying a first home in the early steps. I would say it's such an important project that, people who are really serious about it should probably contact somebody and get more of a, even a one-on-one consultation, because there's so many unique factors that can go in. And there are a number of government supported programs also that can help people. So you really want to talk to somebody that's expert in that.
Thank you. And we do have a resource for one-on-one coaching that's available to our members and our partners called Balance. You can find that on our website. If I could do a good job of navigating off this slide, I would show you maybe towards the end. If you remind me, I'll do that. But that's there for one-on-one advising in addition to potentially scheduling an appointment with someone at one of the branches. And we do this type of work to help make it not intimidating. I feel like a lot of this information and sharing the details about your life, it can be intimidating, can be a little scary to share that personal information. So we hope that we've made it feel less intimidating, and we welcome you into the branch or to schedule a meeting with either one of us. Want to go ahead, John?
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on a couple of other topics also, Dora, just that are not necessarily on this slide. One of the things I want to mention is that the credit union is about to open a new branch at the corner of Alum Rock and King Road. In our effort to reach out more effectively into low and moderate income communities. So we're looking forward to that. And that branch will kind of be set up to do in-person community training on topics such as home loans or intro to banking and things like this. So we're looking forward to that. And Dora also touched on savings accounts and children's accounts quite a bit. And one of the things that we do with many of our children's accounts and teenagers accounts is we actually pay 5% interest on a lot of those accounts, which is really kind of unheard of. But we do it for exactly that idea, to make it easy and give a little incentive for parents to establish that first savings account for a child or a teen. Right now we're in a project where we this last year we opened savings accounts for every first grade student in Franklin McKinley School District, and our foundation, we have the Excite Foundation, opened the accounts and put $50 into the account for every first grade student in Franklin McKinley. And our intention is to do that each year and also to expand to other school districts. So Dora's brought some of these slides up, but I think that these are really generous programs that we want the community to be aware of, because they're really available to everybody in the East San Jose communities.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, it's so important that you just shared that, because I didn't know credit unions do all of that. The background things that you guys do, that's super awesome. I just want to commend you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Dora, I'm willing to get back on script. I know it doesn't look like I am.
That's okay. Let me just go back. Okay.
So I think maybe just to chat a little bit about the difference between a debit card and a credit card. A debit card is actually tied directly to your checking account typically, and so it's going to take the money out that's in your account as you use it automatically, very similar to using cash. Where a credit card is a card that you're actually borrowing money each time you use it. You have a credit limit And each time you buy something with that, it uses up your credit limit. And of course, then you need to pay it back. A very good habit is to pay that back in full every month. That will help you build up a good credit score. You can always make payments, of course, but what you'll learn with that is because the interest rates on credit cards are typically maybe as low as maybe 12, but as high as maybe 20. If you make the minimum payment, you'll find out it's taking you a very long time to pay off your credit card balance. So you need to be careful with that. You know, a lot of people are interested in credit, how to build their credit score and establish credit. Using a credit card is a good tool for that, but it's really important to only maybe use about 30% of your limit, because that's one of the things that is a big factor on your score, is how much of your credit limit have you used. If you've used like almost all of it, then your score goes down, because the credit bureaus, the credit lenders are thinking, well, if they've used all their credit, where are they going to get more? So you always need to show that you have additional resources. And that's another thing on the slide there of, you know, try not to open 3 accounts all in the same, month or 2 months, or it looks like you're going crazy with borrowing. And I think the most important tip on there is just be aware. Again, Excite, we have something on for all of our members, it's free. It's called Savvy Money, and you can basically get your credit score every day if you want. And it doesn't hurt your score to check it. So Mercedes, why does having more cards improve your score? What it tells other lenders, Mercedes, that are looking at your credit history and your credit profile is it's a few things. Number one, it would say, oh, multiple people are willing to lend this person money. So that would help give them confidence. Now, that would be true if your accounts are from places like, Citicorp and Bank of America and Primerica. It would be less true if your accounts are from places like Rent-A-Center or department stores. A lot of department store and Rent-A-Center cards will hurt your score. Cards from higher reputation lenders will help your score if you have capacity, right? If your cards are maxed out, doesn't matter if they're with Goldman Sachs, it's going to hurt your score. So that's the reason having, maybe 2 or 3 quality credit cards with low balances is a good way to build your profile. And then I think Roberto asked about closing the account. Sometimes when you're trying to improve your score, people say, okay, well, I'm just going to close all my accounts. That doesn't really help as much as simply paying them down and keeping them at a 0 balance. Because another thing that the credit bureaus look at is how long have your accounts been open, and they give you credit for accounts that have been open a long time. So if you close all your accounts, you won't have those long-term benefits on your report. So that's the reason for that. And that last question, I think, was about freezing, etc. I missed it.
I can read it. What are your thoughts on freezing credit? I've been so concerned about all of the shoddy security practices and data breaches of credit reporting companies. I remember the one from Target a couple of years ago, that I froze my credit with every reporting agency a few years ago.
Yeah, and Dora, I don't know, you may have more recent research on this, but there's 2 levels, I believe. There's freezing, and then there's also more of a notification. Both can be effective, and I think one is a little bit easier to put on and off than the other. I think a freeze, was that, I'm sorry, who asked?
I think you're referring to an alert. So you can also put alerts on your credit. So for example, even I've seen on people's accounts as they open an account, I'll see on our back end at the credit union, we'll see a notification like, please contact Julie at this number to confirm that it's her. And then I'll ask for identifying factors like maybe your current address, your full name or birth date, etc., to make sure that it is you. So there's that, so that you can still open accounts. Let's say you open a children's savings account or another account at the credit union, but there's like an extra level of security. So I think that's what you're referring to. If not, go ahead, you're welcome to come off mute to clarify. And then, but one other thing that we recommend around that is to pull your credit report. You can pull your free credit report once a year with each of the 3 major credit bureaus, which I think I have on this next slide. Yes. So these are the 3 major credit bureaus. And basically that means that they house the information for your credit score. So that's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And you can go to one place that is annualcreditreport.com. I'll put it in the chat here. Annualcreditreport.com. I can't even talk and type at the same time. I hope I spelled that correctly. You can go there and get a free report every year, and that's separate from your score. So your report will tell you a history of all your open accounts. Like to John's point, if you have something in good standing, you want to keep it open so that it continues to positively impact your credit score. To have it in good standing means keep your spending under 30%. Even if you owe on it, there are strategies known as, we don't have them in this slide, but as the avalanche method and the snowball method that you can look up. Again, that's avalanche and snowball. If I can just have a good video, I usually link to it. I'll send it in the chat in a moment. You can use those strategies to pay down your credit card debt. And then as you do that, you can keep those open so that they keep a positive impact on your credit. Anything that you feel like is just too much for you, maybe you have 5 accounts and you want to get it down to 2 or 3 that you use well, then I would say the ones, once you have it in good standing and paid off, then you can close those off.
Miss Dora,
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, you had your hand up for a minute.
That's okay. Every time I read my credit report, I get a headache and then I throw it down because I can't understand it. Do you guys offer a workshop, or would you be willing to teach people how to read a credit report?
Yes, we do have workshops on that. So this is a brief overview of a couple of different topics we're going through, but we have one that's specific on credit.
Awesome, perfect. We'll be reaching out to you again.
Okay.
And Mercedes, my daughter also uses Credit Karma. And no, that feature there is similar to what I described at Excite with the Savvy Money, where that's not a credit pull when you're using that service.
So again, pulling your credit report to know what that history looks like. And to Julie's point, it'll tell you if there's anything fraudulent or anything to be concerned about that you say, that's not me. Even just yesterday at a presentation, someone said they had $600 spent on their card, and she saw that it was $70 at Wingstop and Pollo Loco and these places that she goes, that's definitely not me spending $100 on food. And then separately, so you would think I'll see my credit score, my credit report. Not the case. Credit report and credit scores are different, but you can also pull your credit score for free. And lately, especially because of the pandemic, these credit bureaus offer free credit monitoring. The only thing I'd be careful with there is that if they ask for credit card information up front to then charge you once it's not free, to just be wary of those free types of offers. But I think that you can get your credit score and monitoring without even having to enter any payment information. Any other questions on credit? Here we have the score, so it can be from as low as 300 to 850. Also, please be wary of any, now I'm forgetting the term, but any agencies that tell you we can improve your credit score fast. Again, think of like, if someone tells you, I'll get you your 6-pack by tomorrow, that's not true. It's gonna take time no matter what. So be wary of those, especially if any agency asks you to give false information, try to create a new identity, things like that, that will be not authentic to your identity and your credit history. Please avoid. You can utilize Excite Credit Union for advice. I'll put my contact information in the chat. You can feel free to contact me and I can talk one-on-one to give you more information. And you can also feel free to use Balance as a coaching service. They actually walk through one by one. They can walk you through how to read your credit score And should you have, I'm sorry, how to read your credit report, that long thing that Victoria said gives her a headache. They'll walk you through that. And if there are any discrepancies in it, they'll walk you through how to contact the credit agencies so that you can correct them. Okay, any other questions? We have questions in the
Yeah,
chat.
Dora, there's one more in there with credit score and APR. And there are many loans where the interest rate is determined by your credit score at the time you get the loan. So a lower credit score will result in a higher interest rate. And that can be true of car loans, mortgage loans, credit card loans. Once you already have a loan, changes in your credit score really shouldn't impact that loan, but it will impact your next loan. Dora, I also wanted to be conscious of time and just see where we're at and check in on that.
Yeah, I think we can end here and maybe just leave some time for questions. The rest of the segment that we had was about saving. But I mentioned some of it before. So as you'll see, tips like identifying your needs versus wants. We have some tips here. So I'll run through that way. You get it in the recording, and we will also share this PowerPoint so you can refer to it later. But the key elements in saving are really knowing how much is coming in and how much is going out. I'll share that when I was in college, I was spending absurd amounts on coffee. I was drinking coffee twice a day and eating out because I was out all day. And only when I sat down to look at that and realize how much I was spending, was I then able to choose to change that and realize that I could have all that money back in my savings. And there are strategies to do that. Really, the idea being that you choose where your money goes instead of saying, where did my money go? You choose ahead of time where you're going to allocate it. So there's these strategies here. 50, 30, 20 budget, for example. And really the practice is just that, is you decide where your money is going to go first. But to do that, it's important to see where it's going now. Okay, so that was the quickest version I've done of that saving segment. And we'll just go ahead and end it there. And I'll put my contact information in the chat. Are there any questions for us? And thank you so much for your time.
Wonderful, wonderful, you guys. I have a quick question, which is I've heard that when you're car shopping or home shopping that, and they're pulling your credit, if it's like the same thing within a month that it doesn't ding your credit as much. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and credit can be super finicky depending on when it reports to the agencies. You can go over your 30%, but then pay it down. If it reports before that, you might get dinged for going over 30%. So I've had people ask, what do I tell my clients, the community I'm serving with? They're trying really hard to raise their credit score, but it's still a range. And there's not a good answer for that. You're gonna see a range. There's even different FICO versions of a credit score. So I lean towards just, personally, I say I'm not going to stress over the nuances of it because I can't cover everything, but I'll look at that range that it lies in, go with the lower one and try to improve from there over time.
Yeah, a soft hit, Roberto, is one that absolutely does not impact your credit score. So that's there's ways that lenders can do a credit pull that won't reflect that what's called a hard inquiry and won't impact your score. So if somebody tells you that what they're doing is a soft inquiry, like a car dealer, I think you can take them at face value that that's true.
And then did we say what a hard inquiry is? That's usually for like a decision, right? A choice that needs to be made.
that's one that will impact your credit score. And people, the credit bureaus are always a little secret about exactly how everything works, but it can be like 5 to 7 points. Like if you're out shopping for a car and they're doing a hard pull, it will be 5 points. But if you go to like 3 car dealers in one day, like Victoria asked, they won't all get counted.
That's good to know. Wow, this has been so insightful and we appreciate your knowledge and your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so we're gonna transition to John and Clarita.
All right, let's see. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And before I get started, I just wanted to share the why I joined this business. So like many, when COVID hit, I was among the people that got laid off. Fast forward, I was fortunate to find a job right away. And then just a few months later, I was able to meet with my financial guide. And after reviewing my finances, he helped me set a plan. And after a few meetings, he extended an opportunity to do the same type of work he had done for me. And so he showed me how easy the work is. I mean, we have conversations and we set appointments and we really do change people's lives. So I took the offer immediately because I saw the opportunity to increase my income and have control of my time, be more present with my family, and most importantly, start to help others like I was helped. So now let me introduce to my amazing coach, John, who is mentoring me to become better each day. So John, take it over.
Clarita, that was really kind. It's sobering to hear what happened to most people during COVID. It's just it's unfortunate, but sometimes those unfortunate times also bring new opportunities for us. So what I'm going to do for the sake of time is actually play with you guys a video that we have created. It's actually short. It's like 5 minutes, and it covers a lot on how to create a spending plan. And then from there, what I'm going to do is take any questions that has to do in the financial world. Be more than happy to answer that. So I will go ahead and do that. Could I have the ability to share, please?
I think you do. Let me double check.
Yeah, you should be good now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, perfect.
So let me go ahead and play this for you guys, and then I'll take questions in the end. Can you guys see the video?
Yes.
Okay, give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear. I want to make sure you guys hear it.
If someone tells you to create a plan for your spending or a budget for yourself, how does it make you feel? Like this or like this? If it's exciting, great. If it feels like a burden, don't sweat it. You are about to learn 4 simple steps that are easy to follow, so you'll be able to look forward to a whole lot more of this. Without a good spending plan, we can suddenly get hit with credit card debt or unexpected expenses to fix a car or pay a big medical bill. These things only add on stress and anxiety and create more roadblocks in our financial progress. A great spending plan empowers us to tell our money where to go instead of wondering where it went. It allows us to turn our wasted money into wealth. Did you know most people admit to easily wasting $5 to $10 a day? That adds up to $150 to $300 a month. And for a married couple, it could be $300 to $600 a month. Imagine freeing up some of those dollars to erase debt and invest more in your future. Finding a way to do this could make the difference between long-term financial independence or having to work for the rest of your life. For example, what if you freed up just $300 a month and invested it? At a 9% rate of return, in 20 years, you would have over $185,000. And in 30 years, almost $500,000. In this short video, we're going to show you how to create that kind of spending plan. Step 1. Write down how you're going to spend your paychecks before you get them. You can write it on paper, type it into a document on your computer, or you can use an app. The point is to determine where every dollar will go before your check is deposited. This includes setting aside money for emergencies and for expenses that don't happen every month, like vacation, clothes, repairs, and gifts. You will find it's best to put this money in a separate account. If you are paid every other week, most months you receive 2 paychecks, but there are 2 months each year you receive 3. If you are paid weekly, you usually receive 4 paychecks a month, but there are 4 months each year when you receive 5. Identify in advance when you will receive these extra paychecks and have a plan for that extra money. You might consider using these amounts for vacation, Christmas, clothes, or building your emergency savings. Step 2. Spend your paychecks the same way every month. It sounds simple, but it makes a huge difference. Once you decide where your paycheck is going to go, do your best to keep repeating the same pattern each month. By just having a plan for your paychecks in advance and being consistent every month with how you spend them, you'll find your money goes so much further. Now here's a quick tip. Do you get a big tax refund each year of $2,000 or more? If so, consider this like an extra paycheck and make sure you have a plan for it. Or if you don't mind a smaller tax refund, consider having your employer withhold less taxes to increase your take-home check. And when was the last time you shopped your auto insurance or called your cell phone, cable, or internet provider to see if they can make you a better offer? And what about subscriptions you no longer use? A little effort on these things might free up $100 a month or more. Step 3, incorporate cash into your spending. This might seem old-fashioned, but the biggest positive to cash is that it's visual, so you know when it's gone. For example, from one of your paychecks, you might decide to have $400 go to your fun money for the month. You can spend this money in any way you want. However, when it's gone, and you have to wait till the same paycheck comes next month to have more cash for this kind of spending. Step 4, give your new plan 90 days. You are creating a new habit. In your first 30 days, it can feel frustrating because you have to work some bugs out of your system. But don't quit, keep going. After 60 days, it will start to work, and after 90 days, it'll feel like it's on autopilot. Most people say they feel like they have more money than they ever had before. And best of all, in addition to saving more, when you spend money on fun things like shopping, eating out, gifts, parties, or a vacation, you can truly enjoy the moment without feeling guilty because the money was there to spend. So let's do a quick review. Step 1, spend your paychecks on paper or an app before you get them. Step 2, spend your paychecks the same way every month. Step 3, incorporate cash into your spending. And step 4, give it 90 days. So what's next? Well, you have to start. Don't delay. Begin turning wasted dollars into long-term wealth. To help you get started, you can choose one or more of the following paths. Path 1, request a free PDF that helps you create your plan and provides a list of money-saving ideas. Path 2, register to watch a free 17-minute video on the 7 steps to create a clear financial vision. Path 3, speak with someone who can help you customize your plan or help you with other smart financial choices. Simply take the path that's right for you by clicking I'm ready.
I hope that was concise enough. Every time I see that, it's like I couldn't believe someone explained it in 5 minutes. The best I've ever done on my own is 19 minutes. So, and I'm not that eloquent. So I mean, that's done.
No, that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, is there any questions? What I'm actually going to do is for anyone that's here, in case of time, constraints, I'm actually going to put a form right here because we're actually looking for ways to improve things. So I'm going to put right here a form that you guys can fill up. And then for anyone that's here and then you would like a one-on-one where we can answer anything that's personal and you don't want to share with a group, I'm more than happy to do that for you. But I am open for any questions that you may have.
Well, the first thing I thought of is I'm sharing that video with my 25-year-old and my 16-year-old.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think about how, we talk about ways to eat better, our health, how to land a good job, things of this nature, but we don't teach our children this important financial literacy at a young age. It's like, yeah. So I'm glad that this information is out there.
Yeah, on the form that I put out there, actually, we're polling to see when do people think it's a good time to start teaching their kids. Should they introduce it to them when they're like in, middle school, maybe elementary or high school, or wait till they're in college. So you just want to have an idea what parents think or what adults think that when they should introduce these topics to kids.
Yeah, I'm trying to wonder In high school, did we ever have, I know we used to have like economics. I mean, didn't they used to teach budgeting or something in class? I don't know. I kind of remember.
Yeah, I think we lost a lot of the life life skills
Yeah, the life
classes. I mean,
skills.
economics. I remember when I went to college, they just teach you how to supply and demand, but they don't bring it down to the home front. So that's a big deal. A lot of the stuff that Excite Credit Union was talking about, I could relate to, and it's definitely important. All the things that they're showing people, making sure that people are learning how to save even when they're young, and opening kids account. Definitely, I could see that people that have more money, they're actually getting more advantages because the more balances you have, like the traditional banks, they won't charge you the maintenance fee, but they require a higher balance. But credit unions that don't is amazing, right? So it's definitely a good thing. I see it out there. So definitely would love to keep on partnering up and teaching these things to the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any questions? Stuff about money, okay? Nothing else. Everything else is tough. Money stuff is a lot simpler for me.
Yeah, that's true. Let me check the chat box. I'm trying to find where it is. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, so you put the link in there. How about, would you like to tell us about Primerica and the services offered?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Okay, so let me go ahead and paste this. Someone actually asked that they can get the link to the video. I just sent it.
Oh, awesome.
Let me go ahead and put that to everyone, so that way everyone can actually have it. There you go. So for all the teenagers that you want to send it to. That's fine. No, but what I would like to say is Primerica is actually a company that's a grassroots. They actually wanted to right a wrong. So I understand when people are getting taken advantage because of ignorance, no one is teaching them. So Primerica came from those starts. So the founder of the company actually were given the wrong types of products and services. And then he didn't find out what's wrong until a couple of his family members passed away. And then he had to do his own research for him to find out that, you know what, it's actually cheaper for us to do it a certain way and where we can get more benefit. And that's what he started back in 1977 with 85 people. And then it's just grown into a global company that, well, more in North America. So what they wanted to do is more champion the middle income families, which is underrepresented, because most people that are getting help, they have to have 250,000 or higher. That's why if you notice the FDIC, there's a lot more history to that, why they put 250 as the insurance. But you know, it's just too much to explain for the time that we have.
Wow.
I want to teach so much more, but there's just not enough time. And I will be more than happy to coordinate another one some other time. But anything that we can do for the community, you let us know. We will coordinate and help that out. There's another thing I want to let you guys know, right? A lot of the big brokerage firms that teach investment, they only want to help people that have social security numbers. So because in their mind, they think people that have socials earn more and it's worth their time. And I think that's discrimination, in my opinion. So I do have a lot of friends that don't have it, and I think they need to have the ability to invest, especially if they are working hard, and that's not being given to them. So we want to make sure we're spreading to them that there are people working and helping people regardless of how much money you have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure.
Oh, you guys are not gonna let me get off easy, right? You asked John a lot of questions. You got to ask this John a lot of questions.
Well, we were, so did you have any slides that you can show?
I am, but that slide is going to take another, probably at least 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Right. So what I wanted to do was actually ask more questions that might be direct, connected to the needs of the people that are attending here.
Okay,
so,
that's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the credit reports that they were asking, I think Roberto was asking some things about credit. I went through that experience that if you have a lot of different cards and you've built up different credit in every single one, and if they're under the same brand called Visa, for example, you can actually consolidate all of your limits into one, and that's going to give you like one card where all your limits are there. So, but they are right. You don't want to close the ones that are the oldest ones, because usually your history helps you out a lot on your credit.
So you mean you can consolidate all
your limits?
Oh.
Yeah, so let's say you have like like a lot of Visa cards. I don't know why you would have a lot, but I know I did in my early 20s because I like collecting cards. I mean, not the debt, but the cards themselves. Like I remember when the Lakers were at the Forum, I would just go there, oh, we're giving away towels, sign up for a card. Sure, right? So what I realized was that you know, when you start growing up and you have a wallet that's so thick from all the cards, you realize it's not needed. So like John said, you just want to get a few from reputable companies, and that's enough. So about freezing the credit. So there's nothing wrong with freezing your credit. So go ahead and do that. So anyone that gets a hold of your credit, your social security, cannot open a new identity. It would flag you. It doesn't hurt you to just freeze it, and you could always unfreeze it when you're the one using your social security, opening a new line or checking something other than other people that can get it.
Yeah, and I know, Julie, if you want to speak to this, you said you froze yours. So my question is, let's just say I decide to freeze mine, and then next week I want to apply for something. How long does it take me to unfreeze it? Do I have to jump through a million hoops?
No, about a couple of minutes.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yep, you can unfreeze it for a day, and then it'll be frozen again the next day.
Wow.
I had a
John, I have a question.
I'm a serial freezer. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I have a question about personal loans. So I know that a lot of places or a lot of banks offer like a larger loan to pay off your debt. Would you recommend something like that if it's
Yeah,
through a legitimate company?
absolutely. If you have runaway debt and you don't own a home, try to consolidate as much as you can. Look towards your credit unions first, because they usually have favorable terms than the banks. The banks usually have to answer to a lot of different constituents, and if it's a co-op for not-for-profit, it's even better because they have terms that they're more lenient on.
And what if you do own a home?
Consider a refi. So double check and see the rates, because the way the Fed funds rate are going to go up 6 more times this year because they're cooling down the inflation. So just think of it this way: when the pandemic happened, they eased on all the rates, so there's a lot of money out there. So what they want to do is, there's so much money chasing too few goods, so the cost of goods are going up because there's so many buyers. So what they're doing is they're taking money out of the system by raising the rates to cool it down, hoping that that's going to fix it. We don't know, right? I'm not Jerome Powell, but that's his goal. So hopefully it works out the way he's thinking. But for now, people are feeling the pinch out there.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Question about absorbing someone else's credit score. What's
Okay,
the process of doing that, and how can people take advantage of that?
Okay, define what you mean by absorbing someone's credit score.
Well, you can, and I don't want to speak on behalf of it because I'm not that professional, but there is a possibility of putting someone on, let's say, for example, a loved one on a particular credit card, and having that credit score be absorbed, and that way they can also participate in the exchanges of goods and things like that without having to worry about starting at zero.
I see. So what
authorized user.
Okay, no, I think what he meant was actually, right, having an additional person use your own credit for their own use.
No, so
is that correct?
So there's the process of absorbing someone's credit score. There's a way you can do so when you so for example, if someone is starting off, like if I have my son who's like 15 years old, and instead of having him start at zero and wanting to, like, let's say for example, buy a car, there's a way that they can absorb my credit score by having them be a user on my card, and therefore they also, I think it's like, I'm not sure what the time frame is, but there's a certain time frame when they have to be on that credit card for them to absorb my credit score, so they can actually have it and be represented by that credit score.
What? Oh,
I've never heard of that at all, but all I'm saying is, when you do that for someone, it's pretty close to co-signing for someone, because then they're using the credit score of the other person, correct?
Yeah, so this is aside from credit being a co-signer, this is it's, from what the process was explained to me, was absorbing somebody else's credit score in the process of not starting at zero.
Wow.
So there's
So my parents did this for me when I was younger, over 18. They put me on their credit cards. I had an actual credit card and it had my name on it, but it was their accounts. So it was a way to help me build up my credit score before I was a proper adult, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow, that is
so just like he said, authorized user, I believe, is what she was going for. Yeah. now that I realize I actually did that for my wife. I gave her an authorized use to my own credit. And then when she branched off, she has a pretty much good history on it. I understand.
Well, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions or comment for John or for Clarita?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dora.
I'm curious what you all recommend around reducing expenses. So we spoke to, I spoke a little bit about reducing those small expenses. And if there's anything that you find in the communities that you work with that is really helpful, whether it's a small thing or a more significant thing that can help reduce expenses so that people feel like they have money to set aside. Because oftentimes the people I'm speaking to, like myself growing up, you know, I didn't have a high income that I could say, sure, I could set aside $500 a month or more than that. So it's really those small shifts that make a difference. I'm curious if there's anything for you that stands out as either small or a bigger move that you can make to reduce your expenses or start saving.
That's actually a very good scenario that you pose right there. So with regards to reducing expenses, everyone has different, the word I'm going to use is priority. So what you want to do is ask their priority. So here's what I do with my clients when they are like, because especially couples, right? One is stuck on one thing, the other one's stuck on another. What I would do is this. So that way I am not in the middle. I just wanted to understand what their priorities are. So what they would do is they would list out all of their expenses that they can think of. I mean, every single thing. And then I would have them rank them in order. One being usually is their place of where they stay, right? Their mortgage or their rent, and then their food, and then it's weird. I've seen it cell phone before food. It's just weird. So different people have different priorities. After they write it all out, what I'm going to ask them to do is actually put their net income on the side and just start deducting. And then when their money runs out from their list, I'm going to say the ones in the bottom, it's time for you to reconsider cutting or reducing. So that's a simple way to do it. But how many people actually follow it without clashing with each other? I don't know. I'm not a marriage counselor. But so I hope that helped.
Do you think either of you, Dora, John, or Clarita, do you think it's a good idea to, on the first of the month, write down every single thing you spend every single day to find out how much you actually spend? I ask that because, you know, they say they say, the experts, do a budget, yada, yada, yada. And then it's like I have this awesome budget, but it looks nothing like what I end up doing with my money.
Yeah, I would say split them into two columns. So you got fixed expenses and you got variable expenses. So fixed expenses are things that are the same amount every single month. Variable are things like going out or miscellaneous stuff that you don't really plan. So put them separately, and then you give yourself about 3 to 4 months, and then you're going to see a pattern, and then you're going to realize which one you want to follow. Most of the time, if you don't follow a pattern, that's when we get away, you know, from what we're wanting to do. Because if you look at it objectively, what's coming in and what's going out, it's easy to say, oh, you have plus $200, $300 every single month. But then your checking account should be 300 times 12 over at the end of the year. But life is never that way. There's always things that you never planned for, family member that's going to need some help. Yeah, so I'd say just, you know, give yourself some room for flexibility and error.
That's a good point. And what about safety nets? I hear different amounts that you should have in your savings in case of emergency. What are I'd like to hear anyone's thoughts on that.
Yeah, so here's a trivial stat for you guys, right? Only 40% of Americans have $1,000. That's sad, right? 40%. So what we want to do is, of course, the ideal is you want 3 months to 6 months of living expenses, not income, living expenses, right? So now when you say living expenses, you got to add in mostly needs, a little bit of wants, maybe, so you don't go insane, right? That's like your break-even point. But I'd say start with at least 2,000. So if you haven't have at least 2,000, work your way towards that. And usually a good way to do that is your tax refund. Unless you've gotten to the habit that, I've had clients that every time they get the refund, the first thing you do is, where are we going? What trip are we going to do? Can happen, but I'd say save half and do the trip with half. And then for the next year, then you already got your baseline. And then from there, you start incrementally doing that. And that's what we do. We create plans for people to kind of plan out what's priority for them, because it's different for everyone. Yeah, for sure. Like my wife's priority is different than mine when it comes to spending. Like I don't care about certain things she does, and I have to care about it for her to be happy. So, and I do. Yeah.
John, you're making me think of a close friend of mine whose wife purchased a Peloton against his advice.
Ooh.
Used it twice. It's been sitting on the porch for months. And it hurts me to hear him talk about it. Such,
Well,
he's a pretty calm guy, but to your point,
Yeah.
we have different priorities even in our own households.
Right. I think if it is going to benefit her in the long run and use it, because your health definitely is very important, right? Nothing really matters if you cannot do anything. So I've had this talk with my team. I've always told them, I was like, imagine you have all the things that you want, all the money in the world, but they're going to take away all of your senses and you can't walk or feel or touch after you receive it. And then people would say, no, I don't want to lose any of that. I'd rather be able to walk and talk and enjoy and see and smell. It's like, well, you have that now. Just be grateful with it and then work on the rest. Yeah. This is fun.
Well, definitely for sure. This is financial literacy should be every month. Yeah,
You let us know,
I think-
Victoria. We'll coordinate it with you.
I have another question, if that's okay, Victoria.
Yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead, Dora.
Yeah, because I'm curious to hear your insights on this, John. I think from my own background and experience, and then from people who I've worked with, I think it's often hard to envision a future when a positive future and a good relationship with money when we come from a hard place. So like if I have very little income, it's hard for me to ever picture myself having a house, right? Sure, I can dream, but it never really quite settles as a reality for me, for example, right? So when that's the case, oftentimes people who are below the like poverty level may not, and this is not to say anything negative, right? I'm just trying to get at my question of how do we support changing that mentality, or and this includes someone like myself to think a different lifestyle and a different capacity for me may be possible if I'm in a moment where I struggle with my finances and I really feel like that's not realistic. So just like the activity you mentioned, are there activities or practices that you all do to help shift that mindset? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I'm referring
absolutely.
to?
So first thing, I'm going to recommend a book. I don't know. This book made so much impact for me. It's 87 pages, easy read. Change Your Paradigm by Bob Proctor. So what he talks about there is most of the time we have a paradigm in our head that may not be ours. It might have been our parents, it might have been our grandparents, it might have been our ancestors. It just keeps on going. But somehow, somewhere down the line, some of those things don't apply to us anymore, but we continue to live it. So then it's self-perpetuating. So what we want to do is find a way to actually see and visualize that we do have to change, because if we don't change, everything else around us is changing and we're getting left behind. So I'd say understanding that. So one is the amount of information that you allow yourself to receive would help you change your mindset. But what goes in your mind comes from different sources. So it could be what you read, what you hear, what you watch, and also the people around you. So if you are around people that are also changing their mindset, I think it's going to be a good support system that way.
Did you say the author's Bob Proctor?
Bob Proctor, yes.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat box.
Sure. Yeah, that book is such an easy read. I read it once, read it again. I was like, it's over? Like, yeah, it's over. But I think it's going to make a big difference for people that really read it. One more thing, when you're reading something, don't go too fast, because most of the time we just want to say we read the book, but in reality is that we absorb the material. So what you want to do is take the time. Sometimes you'll take your time in a certain page, but it's your life you're talking about, so it's worth the investment. So they always say the best investment you can you can do is the one you put into yourself and to others, right? So it's not a fund, it's not that, it's what you put in yourself, you take with you, and then what you put in others comes back to help other people as well. So,
That's beautiful. I like that.
yeah. So it's either Dora or Mercedes on the questions.
I'm thinking, what am I gonna do when I leave here? What am I gonna do as a result of participating in this conversation? I'm gonna order my credit reports and try to understand them, and then reach out to Dora, John, and Clarita if I can.
Yes, that form that we left, like I said, if you want something more customized for you, I'll be more than happy to spend 30 minutes and just chat about it. But a tip on that annualcreditreport.com, because I use that a lot, so I'm glad Dora said it. There's 3 credit bureaus. What you want to do, since they're giving you one annual credit report each for free, stagger them every 4 months. So take one from one, wait 4 months and take one from another, and then another. By the time it cycles, then you have another one, because most of them are relatively close, but so that way you can monitor it throughout the year. Just a tip. Any other questions?
Well, I think we're going to end our chat and say
Sure.
thank you to everyone for coming.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And we have contact information. And Mercedes, will you kindly share again where they can find this training later?
Yeah, definitely. So if you give us a little bit of time to get the program up on our website, it's going to be, you can find it if you go to sjpl.org. That's our San Jose Public Library website. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to find a YouTube link. And if you click there, you'll find all of the library's programming. This specific program is going to be under the Family Learning Center playlist.
Sounds good. It was nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet all you guys. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
You
Manage
too.
your money, or your money will manage you.
Thank you
Right.
so much.
Bye.
And just to remind everyone, we will be finishing off the month strong with our last presenter next week. So the same time, same place, same Zoom link. So we hope to see you all there.
Oh,
Hey,
thanks,
have a good day,
Mercedes.
guys.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
good
Take
day.
care.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody. Bye, Dora. Bye.